Hey guys, here we are, the Quiggin Out MMA Podcast, and I keep saying this over and over again, but we've got an incredibly special guest with us, the one, the only former WEC bantamweight champion, UFC vet, coach, current soccer coach, and just all around great guy, Miguel Angel Torres. How we doing, man?
Doing great, man. I can't complain. How are you doing
Oh
today?
my goodness. Yeah, I saw the soccer thing. I wanted to jump right into that because I was like, you just started doing that. So talk about that a little bit and
Well,
how
my
you
son,
got into that role.
my son's 4, and my girlfriend, she runs a dome called the Spar Dome. It's a soccer dome, and they had a youth league for like little guys, toddlers. So I
Mhm.
have a son that's 4 and a son that's 3, and I played soccer my whole life. I didn't start till I was like 6. So I was like, you know what? Let's start this process a little bit earlier. You know, my dad couldn't coach me because he always worked, and I have a free time in the morning on Saturdays. So I started coaching their team because they needed a coach. And it's one of the most nerve-wracking things I've ever done in my life because I've never coached soccer. But I mean, the kids love it, and they don't know what they're doing yet, but they're having a great time. So how can I complain?
Right. And I love that right off the bat, the fatherhood aspect of it. You're doing something your dad couldn't do for you. And you're kind of changing the narrative there for your son in that case, starting him young and really getting him active in a physical sport, not unlike yourself.
Well, I mean, he trains jujitsu and kickboxing already, so he does like he'll spar kids and he'll do the beginning of class. So he's doing that great. But soccer is like the first thing he's like actually been like in a team sport where he plays with other kids. So he's learning how to get along with that. But he's doing a great job. I can't complain because I'm able to give that time for them. So for me,
Mhm.
that's what my life is about right now. Just giving time back to my community, to my family, to people who want it, and I'm enjoying it. So everything's going great right now.
Absolutely. And you already segued right into my next point, talking about giving back to the community. The reason we touch base, besides the fact that quite honestly, I've wanted to do this for a long time and get the chance to talk to you is your wolf pack. So I want you to talk about what the wolf pack is and why it's such a unique thing that we really think should be making its way, across the world into these gyms.
Well, for about like 3 years now, my girlfriend Marjorie's been doing a Parkinson's class, a rock steady class. She's certified in rock steady, and she runs that at her complex, her sports complex that she manages. But
Mhm.
she's been really busy with leagues and taking care of all her business. And I've been offering this for a while, but the guys were kind of tentative about coming over here. They were kind of nervous, thinking they were going to be judged or I was going to be mean or whatever. And they let me take it over. And after the first day they met me, like we instantly clicked immediately. And for me, like hanging out with guys like that have that kind of experience, that have that kind of like that will to keep fighting, even though they've been diagnosed with some kind of rare disease like a Parkinson's. They pretty much inspire me every day that I get to come and hang out with them or talk to them or just get to like help them like fight back. It makes me feel good in my heart, and I know that like it shows me what a real fighter is. I've trained with guys that are world champions. I've trained with guys that are competing for tournaments or whatever the situation may be. But to actually see these guys like fight back and push and give their all despite their disabilities and their afflictions, to me it's an amazing thing to see, and it motivates everybody that I've talked to, everybody just the response that I've gotten has been an amazing thing, and actually it motivates them, because they look at Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that, and they like that they're getting that kind of attention. It shows them that their struggle is not they're not alone, that there's people who support them and people who love them. So for me, I'm just being able to give back like that is an amazing thing.
Yeah, and you're talking about guys that are, 70 plus. There's 5 of them, your wolf pack that I've seen.
So far, I
Talk.
have 5. I know I'll have more in the future, but so far I got 5.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're starting with 5, but it is amazing to watch those guys because you're not getting them to do this crazy stuff. You're not getting them to do anything that they would never be able to do or they don't think they can do, but you're getting them to really focus and say this isn't stopping me. This isn't
Yeah.
going to prevent me from being able to be me.
Well, these guys tell me like this when they were like, yeah, they wish they would have did this when they were younger. I wish I would have met you 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And I'm like, perfect, you met me now. And the fact is, you met me now, we can start now. And, they came here about 3 weeks ago and they haven't looked back. And I was a little bit kind of tentative about posting anything. And then one of the guys told me, like, why don't you post any of the videos you're recording? I'm like, well, I want to, but I want your permission first. And
Yeah.
they were all about it. They're all about it. They love the attention. They love the fact that they're doing something and that people are actually responding to what they're doing. So it's a great thing for everybody.
Yeah, and it really is a unique situation because it's giving them a platform. And like you said, I figured that's why we haven't seen the videos before, is because that is something where they're like, they're embarrassed, or you think they would be, and really they're going, "Why aren't you posting our videos? Why
Yeah,
aren't you
that when they told me that, I'm like, bro, I got you guys. Like next week, I'm gonna do a profile on all the guys. I have Chopper Mike. No, I have. I'm sorry. Yeah, Chopper Mike. He was a Vietnam vet. I have Beach Mike. I have Bruce. I got Tom. I have my guys. I have Turk. The oldest guy that I have, his name is Turk. And I love these guys because they're so candid. They don't hold back anything. They curse, they swear, they talk their lives. They tell me about their stories and stuff like that. And I never got to hang out with my grandparents like that, and to hang out with guys that are this old and be able to help them and just through a situation like this and give them something to like fight for and something to push for. It's an amazing feeling for me. No, there's no kind of compensation that I can receive that will replace that.
No, there really isn't. And that's a lot coming from you being, a veteran of the sport, like you said, a father, a coach, but taking these 5 guys and showing them, yes, this can be done. And like you said, them getting to spend that time, it's nostalgic. It's getting to hang out with the grandparents you didn't get to hang out with.
Yeah.
It's getting maybe for them someone to be able to hang out with who's younger, who's not,
Well, I was always the old soul. For me, when I was younger, I felt like I always had an old soul. And then when I met these guys and they thought they weren't going to like me, after about 15 minutes, they were like, I could tell when somebody gets hooked, and they were totally hooked. And they've improved so much. It's only been 3 weeks, but they've improved so much. And I take it to the motivation. They see guys training. So I have a kickboxing class at 9:00 in the morning of like just everybody that's just regular training for fights or losing weight or getting in shape or whatever the situation may be. But these guys watch them, and then they want to try to impress these guys, like the younger people. And I love it. I love it so much.
And that's fantastic too, because again, they're looking at somebody 30, 40, 50, 60 years younger than them and going, I'm going to show them how it's done.
I'm going to show them how it's done. Yeah.
So talk about the routines that you have with these guys. Is it anything different than you would do with, rudimentary training of somebody who had never done it before, and you cater it kind of to, them specifically?
Well, for me, they were already part of a rock steady program, and it was kind of rudimentary, just really basic things.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of like incorporate some of that stuff they were already doing, but I added more. So they never threw knees, they never threw kicks, they never threw elbows.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell them, like, you're in a mixed martial arts gym. We do kickboxing, boxing, we do jiu-jitsu, we do wrestling. So we do a lot of things here. And even though you guys can't do all the stuff on the ground, we can incorporate an elbow or a knee. And the fact that they're learning new things, and I actually explain to them how the combos work. And I show, even though they can't really do it that way, they enjoy learning, and they enjoy, like, it keeps their brains, moving and keeping fresh. So for them, like, they enjoy it so much because, like, they're learning new stuff every day they come. And the basic thing they do is just like a basic class. It's just a little bit, instead of a minute, they get 30 seconds or 10 seconds on, 10 seconds off. So I give them a little more rest period. When they want to tell a story, I let them tell their stories to give them a little bit of a break. I don't make them do the whole class if they want to take a breath or whatever. So I don't want to say water it down. I just kind of make it feasible so that they can do the class and they can feel empowered by it.
Yeah, and that's the important part, is the empowerment there, because they're not doing this to train for a fight. They're not doing this to.
Well, in a respect, they are fighting. They're fighting for their lives. They're fighting to keep their sanity and keep their body moving. When you have Parkinson's and you don't use what you have, you lose it. Your speech, like the biggest thing for me in the beginning of class, we do a warm up. And they have to count loud. We'll count in Turkish, we'll count in Spanish, we'll count in Japanese, we'll count backwards. So they're learning new languages, they're learning new phrases. So for them, like, having to use your voice, that empowerment of your voice is a huge thing. And that's one of the first things you lose. Using their legs, lifting weights. I have them doing things that they never did before, and they enjoy it because they never thought they can do those things. So again, going back to the empowerment thing. Anybody that I train, I try to empower. I try to show that they have the power to do that they have the ability. It's just a matter of being able to apply yourself. And these guys come wholeheartedly and apply themselves. So I can't complain. I love these guys.
And
that's why they're my wolf pack.
It almost makes me speechless just hearing you talk about this, because, I didn't mean it to say disrespectful that they're not fighting, but they are fighting. You're absolutely right. They're fighting for everything. And it's that weird old adage, if you don't use it, you lose it. And it's really the worst way that they could experience that. And you're giving them new life at 60, 70, and 80 years old.
What better way to spend your time than helping people that want help? They want to fight back, And I could be training, world champions or training guys that want to fight, but I'll give these guys my time because they don't just want it, they need it. They crave it. They want to get better. They want to keep their skills. They want to keep their, they're being able to walk. I have a guy that can't walk too well, and he'll do the whole class sitting down. And then now he stands up and he hits the speed bag. He does wall sits. He does, push-ups. So, I mean, just that alone, just seeing that breakthrough of just that is just a huge thing. Having the guys throw knees and elbows, they didn't think they can do that kind of stuff, and they're doing it now. For me, it's just it's an amazing feat that they're doing.
Well, and having somebody of your caliber teach them, making sure that you had the skill set. I mean, you've been in the official fight game for 20 plus years, which is crazy to really think about. You've been involved in it, as long as I can remember, and I'm sure there's fights I don't even know about that probably
since 99.
And you've taken those years of experience, and I feel like fighters could really go one of two ways after they stop fighting professionally. They go and open a gym, or they kind of just fade off the earth, and they're wasting all that talent, that experience that they could partake onto someone else. And I feel like you've really stepped up and taken every opportunity to help those around you. And it speaks about the community vibe that MMA really has and can provide for a community.
I appreciate that very much. Those are very kind words. A lot of these guys didn't even know who I was when they came here. They're just starting to figure out what I did and who I am, So for me, it wasn't so much that I was a WEC champion or that I fought for so many years or I did what I did. They appreciated the energy and the soul that I was giving back to them, the time that I would give back to them. Now that they're figuring out who I am and what I did, some of these guys never seen me fight before, So on Fridays, they'll sit down and we'll watch an old fight or I'll watch an old clip, and they're like, "Dude, that was you! Like, I can't believe it." So just to see that the eyes and those guys light up is just an amazing feat.
Yeah, absolutely. And even seeing the camaraderie with people leaving the gym, they're all making sure to say goodbye. They're like, "Hey, look, there's a camera." Oh, no, whatever. I gotta go.
This is my extended family. Everybody that comes to my academy that gives me their time, that gives me their energy, and allows me to help them grow and learn. To me, they're my extended family. And I've had my gym since about 2000, so I've been doing this for a very long time. And every year it just gets better and better. All the experiences that I had in fighting, I had. Not just to be selfish, to earn for myself or do for myself, was to be able to one day when I was able to have a mega gym like I have now, to be able to give back to my community and help my family. And just, I knew my sons and my daughter one day when they grow up, they're going to see these things and they're going to know what their dad did with his spare time. He didn't screw off. He didn't just give up or move away or do whatever. He gave back.
He gave back, and he kept that mullet going. All these.
Yes, he did. Oh man, this thing is flowing. It's flowing.
Oh man, like, I gotta take a minute just to hear you talk about that, and knowing that you've had the gym, you said, since 2000.
Yeah. Well, when I first started teaching, there was like 5 guys that were helping me train. There was one guy that was a boxer. His name is Cliff. I had 2 jiu-jitsu guys, Miguel Segura and Danny Pantoja, and then I had my kickboxing coach, Eugene Calderon. And as time went on and I got experience in fighting and I started getting better, guys fall off every now and then. People get girlfriends, they get married, they find jobs, they grow up and they do things. And I knew from my first fight that this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. I just needed to know. I got used to getting beat up. I used to get bullied all the time. I was a nerd in high school. So for me, it wasn't a matter of taking an ass whooping. I knew I could take one. I just had to learn how to give it back. And once I started learning how to give it back, I was like addicted to it. It was just that rush of just being in there and knowing that it's me versus one person. And if I could spar against 20 guys in one day, doing what I was doing, fighting just one guy was not going to be a problem. And that helped me carry on to all of my.
And that's amazing to talk about, because you said you got addicted to it. And for anybody who could, use the internet and Google it, your first actual year of fighting, you had 10 fights in your first year.
Well, I was going to college. I was going to Purdue. And in my first 8, 9. Oh. And my dad had no idea I was fighting. I told him I was playing soccer on Mondays. They were throwing fights at a bar called Pinky's. And on Mondays, it's really dead, so they would throw MMA fights there. And in the old days, there was no weight class. The lightweight class was 130 to 160. And you had no idea who you were going to fight. There was no glove check. There was no medicals. There was no, none of that stuff. You literally showed up that day to the bar about 2 hours early. You fill out a form. You wrote down your weight. You literally wrote your nickname and you wrote your bio, and then they put the papers and they fucking sorted them out, and then that's when they picked your opponent that day. So you didn't know who you were going to fight till that day. My dad found out I was fighting. he was in the hospital at the time. He got an accident at work, so he was stuck in the hospital for like 6-7 months. And some of his buddies came to the bar to watch the fights that night, and they seen me, and they're like, "Hey, Taco," they call him Taco at work, and they're like, "Hey, man, we seen your son fight. He did an amazing job." I visited him the next day. I had a black eye, and in soccer, we whether it's indoor or outdoor, you always got into fights, you always got beat up, you always got hit. We played dirty soccer, so elbows, nut shots, stuff like that. And I told my dad, "Oh yeah, we had a good game, we won yesterday, but I got into a little scrap or whatever." And he told me, he goes, "How much are you getting paid?" And proudly I stood up and I'm like, "I don't fight for money, I fight for respect." And my old man smacks me from his hospital bed. And he tells me, he goes, "Those guys are making money from you. All of my friends went and they spent all this money. You got to start getting paid." So I go to the promoter. I'm like, "Hey, I want to start getting paid. Gives me $100 my next fight." For me, in '99, I'm happy.
Yeah, $100 is $100.
Yeah, $100. A 20 is a 20, right? So I started fighting $100 here, $100 there. And when I was going to college, I was working at a hospital, and I was making okay money at the time. But with the extra income, I was able to pay my tuition every semester. So without having to take out loans or scholarships, I was able to pay off my tuition every semester. But I had to fight 10 times, 12 times a year. And that was like 2 times I fought, 3 times in one night in tournaments, stuff like that. So those was MMA.
I want to ask you about September 30th because you had 3 fights.
Yeah. That was, I think, the Mixed Martial Arts Invitational in Indianapolis. And I'll never forget because every fight went the distance. I won 3 decisions. So I fought for 45 minutes. And I never felt like I was going to fall apart. I felt like I was in a car wreck. And I was like 18, 19. So for me, the biggest thing was the next day I was sore. And then on Monday I was at the gym again training. No bruises, no soreness. I healed, so fast. I was like, I'm meant for this. I'm built for this. And that kind of motivated me to keep going forward and push.
And it just kept going because I know in 2001, you had 2 months where you had 2001, you had 2 fights in one day. 2003, you had 2 fights in one day. And I mean,
I fought 2 guys. I fought one guy twice in one day. There was one time I fought a guy, and I knocked him out with a side. No, I knocked him out with a rear naked. I had a choke, and he didn't want to tap, and he went out. The fight's over. He gets up, and he's like, "I didn't tap. The fight's not over." And we're fighting at this bar, and the promoter's like, "You guys want to see one more round?" And I was like, chanting one more. In those days, I would win a fight, but I was in such good shape. I wanted to keep going, And the guy gets up and let's fight one more time. And it was like those are the old days MMA people don't really talk about anymore.
No, they don't. And I mean, it was a freak show back then. It was a circus.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. I had the gloves that I wore on those days. There was no padding in the knuckles. There was no thumb protection. There was no hand wraps. It was just literally you put on some gloves with your bare knuckles and you went out there and you scrapped somebody.
And it's, to really think about it, you won your first 20 fights.
I won my first 20 fights before I tore my ACL. I tore my ACL and I was off for a while. And once I was
going to ask about that. You had that little bit of a lull.
Yeah, I tore my ACL, so I was up for like 7-8 months. And me being who I am, I got, connected with a sports medicine doctor named Dr. Shelbourne in Indianapolis. And I drove 2.5 hours to his clinic. He met me. He actually was raised in Gary, Indiana, like 10 minutes from where I live in the harbor in East Chicago. And he took me in. He helped me out. Adios. And I think it was within about 2 weeks, I was already back at work. I was walking very slow, but I was back at work again. And then within a month, I was doing jiu-jitsu with the gi. So before that, I never did gi, And I was just doing technique and just trying to get back in shape. And about 6 months in, I was already past my strength. They test your strength before your surgery and then after. And I was already surpassed all my things that I was doing before the surgery. So in my mind, I was ready to fight again. I had my next fight against a guy named Ryan Ackerman. And cockily, I put him in a triangle and mounted him. Instead of finishing with an armbar or a triangle, I tried to punch him and submit him with punches. The round ends. I get up, and I literally felt my legs like Bambi in the beginning of the movie when Bambi couldn't walk right. I get back to the corner, I sit down, I'm like, dude, my legs are gone. My cornerman never heard me say anything like that in my life. And they started throwing water on me, saying I'll be all right. So the next 2 rounds went Ryan Ackerman's way. And he didn't knock me out or submit me, but he wanted a decision because I couldn't really do much. And that was my first loss that I ever had. And after that, I literally focused on mine, the one I had to do, and just went on a tear after that. So I got to WEC.
And that was the other thing is that, so I'm going to tell you, so 53 fights documented. I always say documented because it seems like every time I tell a fighter how many fights they had, they go, "Nah, there was more."
There was
They
more.
just
Yeah.
don't.
Well, in the old days, there was fights that were like, so there was like gym versus gym, or some guys their gym was in their garage and they would set up stuff on the side. And for experience, you take those things because you don't know what you're going to encounter. Because every day you go to a fight, you don't know who you're going to fight till you get there. So for me, doing
Yeah.
stuff like that was like it was building my character as a fighter and building my persona as a human being. So it was things that I would never take back.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to give you a fun fact that I hope no one's ever brought up before. So in 53 fights, you've only fought once in December. What's with that?
People don't really throw fights in December too much. If they threw more fights in December, I would have taken them. But in those days, they weren't really throwing fights. I think it's because of Christmas time. People are spending money on Christmas gifts, not fight tickets.
They didn't want you to have a black eye.
Right. So in those days, a lot of guys were into fighting, but I think it's just a lull in the sport in that month.
I figured I was like, maybe I'll get him with this one.
If there was fights in December, in those days, I took fights whenever I could. Because, I needed the money. It was helping me pay for tuition. It was helping me. And whenever I had extra money, I would buy a pair of pads. I would buy some thigh pads, some hand pads, some gloves. I would always buy stuff to invest back into my academy. So for me, it was like a big thing because I was going to school for marketing. And every time they gave you a project, they had you make up a business and you had to do a marketing plan and a strategy and all this stuff. And I already had a business. So I literally developed my logo when I was 20. And I had my, all these things I was already foreshadowing everything that was going to happen in the future. So for me, it was just like a matter of just using school as I was earning a degree to build my academy and build my reputation.
That's one way to hit the ground running. But like you said, there was so much already ready.
Yeah.
The logo, the business, like the mindset of, if this ever came up, I would know what I'm doing.
I grew up with the Karate Kid and Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan and, all these guys. So for me, like being a martial artist was like not a dream job. It was like my passion of how I wanted to live my life, of how I wanted to be a human being. Not a person, like an actual person to give back to the community. But how can I give back if I don't have the experience? Before I was fighting, I would train at Taekwondo gyms or karate gyms. I'll see you later, brother. And for me, it was like, these guys had real fight experience. And I would ask them questions. Hey, this guy took me down or I got jumped. It wasn't just one guy. And the answer was always, when you're a black belt, you won't have this problem or all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, by the time I'm a black belt, I'm going to spend 10 grand. And I had not seen anything that's going to work in the streets here. So I had to learn something for me that was, and I'm not saying karate or taekwondo does not work in the streets at all. But I'm saying at the time that I was learning from people I was learning, it wasn't working for me to defend myself.
Yeah.
Until I met my team of people in the harbor that was taking care of me, I didn't really actually learn how to actually compete and fight. And it was a lot of the time that I put in and the will that I put in, but it was the time these guys gave me that helped me become who I became. My coach, Eugene Calderon, helped pass me to, I think I was like 29, 30 years old. And then I fought after that a couple of times and he still would come work with me. And every now and then we run into each other, but without those guys doing what they did, I could not have become what I became. And that says for all of my training partners, all of my coaches, anyone that I ever trained with, those guys helped make me who I am. I didn't make myself.
And again, I love that. Like not once have you been like, I did this myself. I made it my own. I did this.
Bro,
you
this
talk
place
about how important the community is.
This place that I'm in right now, I have over 200 students right now. And this place wouldn't be what it is without the people that I have coming here, without their energy, without their love for the sport, without their passion, this wouldn't exist. I built this place. A good friend of mine, my brother Mike, helped invest and helped me build this place with his bare hands. He helped me build everything. And people like that see my passion and see what I'm doing for the community, their belief in me and their assistance helped me become what I am. To me, I'm just a bum that just loves fighting. And to these guys, I give them a little bit different perspective on life and a different idea on how to like be a better person. And that for me is like, all the guys that I train, you can't ask for anything more than that. Money will come when it comes, but money goes. Money does not stay forever. So for me, it's just a matter of the connection I make with people, the chance to share that time and see that growth. That's what it's all about.
You should be a motivational speaker the way you're talking. Like,
well, I tried last year. Like, I'm going through a lot of personal stuff right now. I don't want to disclose what I'm going through because I can't. But I'm going through a lot of personal things, and it's draining. It drains my soul what I'm going through. But I know I have to get through it for my kids. I have to get through it for my family, and I'm going through it. And I'm in the midst of it now. And if I didn't have this, and if I didn't have my students, I didn't have my people, I'd be drained every day. I'd be depressed. I wouldn't be happy. I wouldn't be talking to you right now. So for me, my community helps me survive. My community helps keep me alive. So I'm very blessed.
Absolutely. And I can attest to that, years of watching the sport, we already talked about it. Some of the first fights I watched were Faber Brown 2, Aldo Swanson, and your fight versus Mizugaki. And I think your fight was one of the first ones I watched go to a decision. And I just remember being enamored by the fight and just being like,
he was a monster, dude. He was a monster. Dude was a monster.
Over the years, watching the fight, getting more developed into it, and I tried jiu-jitsu, and I was like, I can't, I got hurt. I had a kid put me in an arm bar and almost break my arm. A kid who was, a greener belt than me.
Yeah, that happens.
And I'll never forget, my professor came over and he goes, "All right, what happened?" And I said,
check, brother.
He goes, "What did you do wrong?" And I said, "I should have tapped sooner." He goes, "Wrong." And I'm like, "I didn't defend it right." He's like, "Wrong." And I'm like, I don't know what else is left.
You shouldn't have got put there to begin with. That's the only answer you can give your students, man. 100%. That's how I was raised in jiu-jitsu, and that's how I raised my people. You messed up a long time ago.
And I remember just watching fights and going, I don't understand why this isn't working, why this isn't working. And I finally, in 2019, got the chance to say, you know what? I've got the time. I've got the funds. Like, I'm going to do this. So I started doing jiu-jitsu, and I said, I'm going to have a blue belt by next year. And they're like, okay. So I kept going. And I got, obviously COVID shut everything down. Came back a couple months later. We were training with masks on.
Yeah.
And training with masks on is terrible.
It sucks. I was doing Zoom classes, and I'm like, dude, this is so lonely. I was in this giant gym in the middle of the mat doing a Zoom class for like 10 people. And don't get me wrong, I enjoyed what I was doing. It's a whole different thing when you have people on the mat in front of you and you're teaching versus being on a computer. It's a whole different thing.
And I ended up getting my blue belt last June.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
And the more now it's like, I was like, I'm getting decent. And then I remember, as you were talking about, I went up, I got my promotion, and one of our brown belts at the time leaned over and he looked at me and he said, sorry to everybody who's listening. He goes, don't you fucking quit on me. He goes, we have put too much work into you for you to leave, because the statistics on a blue belt leaving
blue belt curse. Yep.
It's astounding.
Happens everywhere, man. I have a lot of guys that go through those kind of things. But I think the biggest thing with that is just the community. Once you get promoted, just having people, hey, where are you at? I haven't seen you in the gym. Where you been? Some guys take a little bit of a break after they get their belt, and then they never come back. That break to whatever they get into, and then they get into this whole different thing of life. But we're blessed. We have a good crew.
And that's the thing, is that people don't realize that there have been times where I've had a really bad day, whether something's going on at home or something's going on in your head or something's going on at work, and you get on that mat and it's like
it all goes away.
It's kind of like you're going through TSA and they take all your stuff away from you. Okay, no, just you.
That's what I always tell people. Like, no matter how much money you have, your religion, your race, none of that matters. Once you get on the mat, your shoes are off, you have your gi on, you have your no-gi stuff on. Once you're on that mat, everybody's equal. And the only thing that separates you is the time and the effort you put into what you're trying to do. That's why I love the martial arts so much. I was literally 130 pounds, 125 pounds, senior in high school. And I would talk about what I wanted to do, but nobody gave me a shot or even a thought of that I was going to become what I became.
No.
And I'm a little bit petty, so I wanted to prove a lot of people wrong. But at the same time, I wanted to prove the people that did support me that they were right. So I had a couple of friends that were supportive, and that my training partners that were supportive. So for me, it wasn't so much proving people wrong. It was showing the guys that were trying to help me that they were correct and that I can do it. I'll see you guys later.
And I like there was a little bit of honesty in there. There was a little pettiness, but that wasn't your driving force. It was the people who said, yeah, you can do this. Go for it. So yeah, and that's been the jiu-jitsu journey. When anyone who doesn't train doesn't understand the release that you get, the euphoria you get from you not doing a move, but your body reacting to something. Like,
you're literally free for that whole time. You're literally not confounded by constraints of society or your job or your family. You're literally on your own, surviving in the wild. And the wild happens to be the mats, not the forest. But same respect. There's always a bigger fish, always a bigger predator, always somebody that's better. And are you going to shy away from that person, or are you going to rise to the occasion? And that to me every day is life changing.
And it really is. And you going from competing in the sport and being an active fighter, now we're going, I think your last fight was almost 6 years ago. So I think 5 years ago. What's it been like afterwards that you're now able to devote all of your time to really focusing on everybody else? Because it seems like that's your focus. Like you said, you're a bum. Everyone else is.
For me, it's like, that's all I ever wanted to do in my life. I just wanted to be able to offer my students the best experience that I could offer them. I wanted them to be able to look at their coach and believe in me and know that I've been where you're at. I've been through what you've been through. I've cut 20 pounds. I've trained injured. I've fought injured. I've won fights. I've lost big fights. I've been through it all. And I always had my head in the air. And I always, came back to the gym the next day and did what I had to do. It's never like, oh, I lost a couple fights, I'm going to quit, or I'm going to give up. Or that's why whenever I always put hashtag never give up, because the will to keep pushing through adversity, even though it's not going your way, is what the martial arts is truly about. If you could survive defeat and failure and keep showing up every day, eventually you're going to figure it out and you're going to get better. And if at the same time you're getting better, you can help other people get better, what better kind of a life could you ask for?
No, really. I mean, that's the perfect way to put it, because it's the most team individual sport that exists. It really is, because it's not just competing. It's not just learning. It's everything about it just develops you as a human being, not just a competitor or a fighter or just someone who wants to get in shape. Like, it changes you for the better.
Well, you get adopted by a new family. There's two facets to what you just said. When you compete, you're alone. But when you train, you're not alone. You have to have a team to be able to train. And your team can't be just guys that just show up and just do whatever. You have to have a team of guys that want to excel and they want to become better themselves. Then when you go out there and you compete, even though you're on the mat or you're in the ring or in the cage by yourself, you're being supported by a group of individuals that you spend time in the gym with. Those are the guys that helped you cut weight. Those are the guys that helped you make sure you were doing your diet. Those are the guys that help hold pads or spar or whatever it is, So even though it's an individual sport, you can't do it alone. I tried doing it alone. It's almost impossible. So you do need a team, and your team has to be on the same page as you. But when you're out there, you are alone. So it's just you got the best of both worlds on both sides.
You really do. And that team, and like you said, you can't just have people who are just going in there. They have to have the right mindset. They have to have the right understanding that there are some people who don't compete. And when you're training, they don't want to train like they're competing.
Yeah. But they still help. Anything that helps you in your process, whether somebody's going to be a competitor or not, you both are helping each other out.
Yeah. Well, my initial goal was to compete as a white belt. And I was like, all right, I'm going to do this. And COVID shut everything down. And I said, okay, I still got some time. It came back, and a couple months later got the blue. And I went, shit. Now I got to compete as a blue belt.
Not a bad thing, though. Not a bad thing.
No. Well, and I'm not tiny, if you can't tell. And so the weight class is like you were talking about with the early fights, where I might be fighting somebody, 50 pounds lighter or 50 pounds heavier.
Yeah. And that's a huge swing either way, 100%.
Yeah. And it changes everything. So being that you're such the community person, what's the gym itself seems like it's everything. Your family seems like it's everything. What do you do other than those things? Like, is there anything you have time to do? Because I can see it on your face. You're like, that's it.
That's about it. I cook. I like to cook,
Okay.
I cook. That's about it. I eat. I hang out with my kids. So I come in the morning. I teach class. My boys are here in the morning. I'm not going to pay for daycare. So I have somebody I have a daycare here in my academy. And basically, I teach class in the morning, have lunch with my kids, try to put them for a nap if they can't go for a nap. If not, they can do something. Come back to the gym at about 5:30. I'm here till about 10. I have one more class going on right now. I have kickboxing class at 9 o'clock Central Time till 10. And by the time I get out of here, it's 10:30. By the time I get home, it's 11. So by the time I start cooking, it's 11:30. So basically, I just, I live my life the way I want, and I love giving back to my community. I love being with my family, and that's all my life is about. I don't really have time for anything else. And tournaments on the weekends or fights on the weekends. That's about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I saw, the tournaments recently. You guys look like you did fairly well, and it's cool to see you imparting that wisdom. And I'm sure it's cool, not a selfish thing, but to see them succeed in the things that you've helped them learn and grow has to be somewhat satisfying.
Well, it's an amazing feeling. Like when I moved my academy here, I moved about maybe 15 miles away from my old academy. And I thought I was going to lose a bunch of students, and more than half came back. But my kids' class kind of like dwindled down to almost nothing. So when I started my kids' program after COVID, I started with a whole new group of kids. And tournaments were still like, they were just starting out again. And I was kind of nervous with this new group of kids that I had. And the last 3 tournaments we had, we took 3 team trophies. So, they've been doing an amazing job. I have great assistant coaches that help me out. They're students of mine that have been with me for over 10 years plus.
Wow.
So, I'm very blessed with the community that I've developed here and the people that I have around me. Because, again, like I said before, without that, I wouldn't have what I have right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And the more you talk about it, I can just see like the shine in your face. Like you're just so excited to be able to support those people, but it's not, at no point does it seem selfish or does it seem self-serving, because everything you're doing is for them.
That's all I have to do. For me, you can be a person and live societal life and just do, watch the game and stay home and have a beer and, eat dinner and go to bed early. And I don't mind going to bed at 2 and 3 in the morning every day and getting up at 7 with the kids and doing what I got to do. I don't mind that because I know it's not about me. I know it's about the future. I know the future is in my academy and in my family. So, I have ambitions of wanting to train and fight again one day in the future when my kids start going to school again. But even if that never happened, I love what I'm doing right now. And I can see myself doing this to the day that I die. So for me, I'm very happy where I'm at right now. I'm in a very good place.
And I mean, I'm not going to lie. I'm kind of excited to hear something like that, wanting to fight again, because we're seeing, and this isn't anything, we're seeing fighters who are a little bit older, in the fight game, because really like 38, they kind of were like, all right, you're done. And you're seeing these guys fight past that.
Yeah.
Well, Teixeira's 42 and he's the champion. Like, what are we doing?
Science is an amazing thing right now, huh?
Yeah.
Science is an amazing thing.
So, and you're seeing a lot of these older guys end up in places like bare knuckle. So I'm kind of curious to see what you thought about that. Not necessarily for you, but I see a smile on your face already.
I love the idea of bare knuckle fighting. Like for me, like I love competing. I love being so much competing, not so much to beat somebody up, but the fact that test myself at the highest levels. And I think bare knuckle fighting, next MMA, there's nothing as raw as bare knuckle fighting. Because there's no bullshit in that. There's no lying in that. Some guys are going to get dropped and that's going to be over and that's it. So for me, like the end of my career, I was going through a lot of things personally in my marriage and my family and stuff like that. So I was trying to move my academy. I broke my leg, so I was out for about a year.
Ooh.
So yeah, I smashed it in Mexico. So horseback riding on the beach, it's dangerous. So
wait, did you fall off? Did you get kicked? Like what?
No, I was riding and I was trying to turn the horse and I fucking fell off and snapped my shin in half and literally cracked it in half. So there was nothing to connect the bone to. I had to fly back from Mexico like that too with the broken leg, and I couldn't have a cast because you can't wear a cast on a plane. And then I didn't have any pain medication, and I couldn't drink anything because I had to have surgery as soon as I landed in America. So it was like one of the worst experiences of my life. And then that was a dark time in my life. I had a lot of bad things going on that time because I couldn't walk and I was stuck at home and just.
The cabin fever's there.
Puts in. And, it gets really rough, so I still came to the gym every day, even though I couldn't do much. And I was just laying there or sitting there like a bum. But, I made it through. I'm on the other side now. I'm healthy. And, I'm excited for the future for my academy and myself and my family.
And I mean, that's a hell of a story because it just gave me like PTSD from the last time I went horseback riding. And the horse, we were with a whole group of people. I don't think I've ever told this story on the show, so everybody enjoy. Basically, we were going, and there was another tour group in front of us, and they turned around, and my horse went, "Oh, we're going back," and turned around, and they're calling him. I'm trying to stop him, and I finally I had a 30-minute conversation with a horse.
That happened.
And I'm just like, all right, you want to go?
Don't care though. Horses are going where they want to go.
No, I'm like, all right, you want to go back? That's cool. As long as we just stay at this pace, like, don't throw me off. And at one point he started to go and I was like, oh no. Like, I don't want to fall off the horse today. But it gave me that same like fear. That's my fear of, getting it caught, falling off and something happening. And Now you made me never want to get on a horse again. So
Well, you know what they say when you fall off a horse,
get back
you
on.
gotta get back on again. Yep, you got to get back on again. So you
Oh,
live
I
and you
have.
learn. You live and you learn.
Yeah. And that's jujitsu too. You get hurt, take some time off, go back in there. But a lot of the times, a lot of people will say, even if you can't train, just sit there in the gym. You sat there with a broken shin. No one else has an excuse.
Well, that's what I tell my guys when they get hurt. They pop a rib, they hurt their elbow, whatever. I'm like, if you don't come back to class for a month, I'm never going to see you again. Get a notebook, show up, write down what's going on, figure your stuff out. And the guys do, they come back and they figure it out. So that's the main thing, being consistent. Even when you can't do something, you still can do something.
Yeah. And people don't realize that sometimes it's something as simple as that. It's just sitting there and watching, because you're going to be able to help somebody else see something they can't see. You're going to see something you've been doing wrong that they're doing, and you're going, oh, if I just slide my leg here, move my arm here, this works for me now. Like, you're going to get a different perspective on that. And I don't think a lot of people really understand that. So
that's where we train. So we have an academy, so we can learn.
Well, I don't know what else to ask you. Like, for once in my life, I'm nearly speechless, and it's just one of those situations where it's not who you are, it's what you are. It's the kind of person that you brought to, your community, the world, and sharing those videos of the Wolfpack. Because again, that's how all this started. I saw those videos and I just said, I want to know more. I have to know more about these guys. So I know you're doing one-on-one bios of them. You're going to be doing that coming up. But I'm going to put you on the spot, and I'm going to have you pick one of them and give us a little bit more about them, because I know you said one of them was a Vietnam vet, but tell us a little bit more about some of these guys. And,
So my oldest student, his name is Turk. And Turk is one of those guys that will say everything he's thinking on his mind and not worry about what your reaction is. And Turk, there's sayings that he has that have a lot of curse words in it, and I don't want to repeat them, but I mean, this guy literally is the most candid guy. Selma Hayek. No, not Selma. Who was it? Oh, man. There's an actress that he's adored for.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my God. What's her name? It's in the last video I posted when he was in the speed bag. And he literally, I told him, I'm going to make a video when you make your profile, and I'm going to send it to her, and I'm going to, try to get you to meet her or something like that. He's 84 years old, and he's had Parkinson's for a while now, and this guy comes in, and he just tears it up. He tears it up. So he's one of my favorite guys, because he speaks his mind, and because he speaks his mind, everyone else feels more comfortable to speak their minds too. And I like that. I'm a very candid person where I don't mind saying what I think. And sometimes you got to watch that around some people. But these guys, you can say whatever you want, and I love it.
Well, and we live in a different world, and you touched a little bit on depression, and without, diving into your personal life, because, we're not about that. You touched on the most important thing. When we were home and people are home nowadays, the depression is really kicking in. And it's not something we're focusing on as a society enough. We're focusing on staying 6 feet apart, and we're doing this and doing that. But I'm like, at the end of the day, talk to somebody. Go and hang out with somebody.
Society always wants to remedy everything with the medicine or with the pill or with the shot. I think a lot of times just getting to know the person and knowing where their affliction or where their problem comes from, that's a huge part of getting to the problem or the root of the problem, So being able to talk to these guys and they tell their stories and they just tell me about themselves and their families and just their ideas, it's just it's a life-changing thing that I've entered into. So I'm very blessed. I'm very lucky.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to take this moment to have you thank anybody who's helped you along your journey. And I don't mean all the way back, but let's just stick with currently. Because like you said, being a father now, wanting to fight when you're older, that's a conversation we're going to have another time, because I definitely want to delve more into that, because it's something I would love to see. I'm not going to lie. I mean, you don't see guys with 50 plus fights and as few losses as you had. You don't see that. And it was all about mental headspace. It was about going into a fight and being cocky. It was about what was going on at home, in that time. And you just go down that ladder, and I'm glad to see you pick yourself back up. And I don't mean, that you were that low, but who knows what's going on in your head. You're not focused.
I've been low. I hear people, and that's the thing why I can relate to anybody. I've been at the top of the world and I've been all the way at the bottom more than once. So for me, it's like I can relate to you no matter where you come from because I've been there. So my experiences in life, good or bad, have made me who I am. And if I was going to thank anybody in my career or thank anybody in my life currently, first and foremost, my family. My mother, my father, my sister, my brother, for believing in me, for having me, for being there for me whenever I needed them. My children, for showing me that new life is more important than old life. To my boy Mike Hill and his family, for believing in me so much to have me build this great academy that I have right now, because I couldn't be here without them. To all my students, without your support, without you coming to the gym and training every day and being a part of my life, I couldn't be where I'm at right now. My career was a big part of it, but now those are the three main groups that I have to say thank you to. And yourself, people that support me, people that know me from the old days, people that remember what I did. It's weird because you'll go somewhere, like I'll go to a restaurant with my boys, or I'll go to the store, I'll go to the mall or whatever it is, and people will recognize me and talk to me, and people look at you like, who's that guy? He must be famous or something like that. I don't consider myself to be famous, but some people still remember what I did or they recognize me, and it's kind of surreal because you're not in that lifestyle anymore, but people don't forget. So I want to thank those people too. All my fans and supporters, thank you very much for everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been out with fighters, and people are like, oh, who's that?
Yeah.
Oh, he must be famous. And it's like, someone like you who was in the game for as long as you were, fighting through the various organizations, fighting in bars for free. I still think your dad slapping you from a hospital bed is probably one of the funniest things I've ever heard. Because it just seems like if that's how you are, your dad was probably, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, don't do that.
You get paid, my son. I'm like, okay, I will.
Well, and I just want to take a minute to shout out some of the people who helped me out. I'm going to try and do this. I do it every time. La Barba Cubana, one of my good friends, his beard care company. It's how this stays so nice and shiny. We've got Bertzo's Bake Shop over in Orlando. So if you're ever down in Florida, let me know. We'll go to some places.
Oh, sure. I'll be out there in a couple. Next month, I'll be out there.
Where are you coming?
Tampa. I'm going to go commentate a fight from my boy, Ralph Garcia.
Oh, yeah. So
I'll be there.
I forgot something. We met once at one of Ralph's fights.
I was either commentating or signing autographs.
Yeah, signing autographs. Yeah. I'm not even ashamed to say. And I remember that, and I was like, don't bring it up. And then I was like, you know what? Now we're cool. Like, so I have a picture somewhere, and I remember that. And it was probably like 7 years ago.
Yeah.
But absolutely, yeah, Ralph in the World Class Fight League, those guys, like, it's the only people I know who could do a 24-fight card and it not be terrible.
Yeah. He's been supporting me since the beginning of my career. So, Ralph, I have a ton of love for Ralph. He's like my brother. Like, pretty much he supported me my whole career.
Yeah. Well, and I live 20 minutes from Tampa. So,
awesome.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Then I'll see you in February, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. So then the last two people, Fat Boy Jiu-Jitsu makes some amazing shirts, gis for bigger guys because we need the love too. Tim makes knives on Instagram, a good friend of mine who makes custom knives. So if you guys want to go check him out, we still have a knife giveaway to do after episode 50. We're going to randomly choose a guest, send him a knife as long as it's legal to do so. I don't know. It's a pretty large knife.
Different time now, right? Different time.
So on behalf of myself, Combat Press, really, Miguel, like, this was an absolute honor. Not just because, again, of who you are, but what you're doing. You're doing something completely different that I've not seen anybody else do. And you are giving these older guys, your wolf pack, new life. And I don't think there's any greater thing you could be doing with your life right now.
I appreciate it. Me neither. I agree with you 100%. Thank you very much for the kind words.
No problem, man. I will see you in February. Thank you again for coming on.
See you then, my brother. Have a good night.
You too.